Hello, everyone. Welcome back. All right, our next panel is on a special game to me. I've known these guys for a long time. Jenova Chen, I actually met, I think in like 2005 or 6 when he was a student still at USC, one of the first graduates of their video game program, and I went with my Spike show to film him telling about the program. And since then, as you know, That Game Company has made an incredible group of games that I think push our industry in new and intriguing directions. I interviewed Jenova a few years ago about this game when they had first announced it with Apple, and it's been a long development process, as I'm sure they'll tell us on stage, but it is finally coming out next month. So it's great to have the team from That Game Company with us. So without further ado, let's welcome them out. Jenova, Eileen, Chris, Vincent, and Aaron. Come on out, guys. TGC, we're finally here, ready for release on Sky. So, you know, this has really been interesting to see how this project has evolved. And I remember sitting down with Jenova. It was probably, I don't know, 4+ years ago when he first talked to me about the vision for the kind of game he wanted to make, and whether it's you know, flow, flower, journey. I think there's always been something in Jenova's mind that has sort of blossomed into a concept for a game. And you know, some of the things he told me when I remember meeting with him, talking about the idea of, you know, the people in our lives that don't necessarily understand games or appreciate what games mean to us, and sometimes it's hard to bring them along for a journey. And one of the things I remember when Jenova first pitched it to me many years before it was announced was this concept of holding hands with someone and taking them on a journey, sort of like taking them through Disneyland. I remember there was an old, I think, didn't you say there was an old like Walt Disney image, I think, that inspired you or something? Tell now that you're getting close to release, tell us a bit about that initial kind of inspiration.
Sure. I'm a huge fan of, pretty much everything Disney Pixar. Actually, before I even got into the game industry, I was dreaming of one day working at Pixar, work on one of those animation films. I guess there's always a special place in my heart. They make these heartwarming experiences, right? And so one thing that I find very inspiring was that when Disney started to build the park, and the reason he had to build it, himself, is that he wanted to have a good time with his own children. He has 2 daughters, and he wanted to have a park where the adults and children can have the, kind of great time together. But at the time, before Disneyland was there was not many theme parks. There's only just carnivals, and they are mostly designed for children. And Disney had a terrible experience there. And the idea of why isn't there a park for adults and children and cross-generational to have a good time together, it's kind of like sparked his idea to build a park. And when we first started Sky Project, it's very much like video game has been, for more than 40 years. There are many games for children to play, there are many games for adults, but I haven't really seen many games where it can be played cross-generational. And, I always take my family, my wife, and, the people who are close to me to Disneyland and to build a bonding experience. And, but one night, my wife and I, we were both on bed. We were playing mobile games in our phone. And it was just like, why isn't there a game that we can play together? And that kind of really drives me wanting to create something that you can play with the people you love. Yeah.
Powerful idea. And you guys have the honor of translating this into a into an experience. Can you guys maybe talk a bit about, obviously that was Jenova's pitch many, many years ago, and this I think has been the longest development sprint for That Game Company. What, 6 years on this, or how many years?
More. It's like 6 close to 7.
6+ or 7 years. So that's for young folks like yourselves, that's a very long process. Can you guys maybe go through a little bit about translating that vision and the things you've kind of learned over that 6 or 7 years about what this game has evolved into? Because I think a lot of people look at it and say, we love that, we love Journey, looks somewhat similar, but they're trying to grasp sort of exactly what is this experience, and like you guys had to sort of figure that out throughout development. So maybe you guys want to talk a bit about that process.
Yeah, I can lead with that. So looking at Journey, it's 2 people, it's a single biome, it's this desert that kind of leads you through, and we kind of play with some of the feeling of being underwater or being up in the snow or whatever, but expanding upon that and building a much bigger world so that, in Sky, basically, it should feel like maybe a bunch of little small journeys going to these individual temples. There's different lands. Each land is its own biome. Each biome should have its own feeling. So the first one feels very sort of uplifting, but if you want to go maybe somewhere a bit more curious or spooky, you might go to the dusk area, and that's where sort of the monsters roam. And then there's this higher order kind of like meta problem that the players are helping out with, where they're gathering light and shepherding it to this storm in the distance. And hopefully all of that kind of combines to kind of create a world where those feelings that were there in Journey are still there, but it's sort of been maximized and expanded upon into these to create feeling more like a world versus an arc.
Yeah, it's been a big challenge to try, and we have a few goals. One is to make it really accessible to like unexperienced gamers, and also make it engaging and fun for experienced gamers. At the same time, we have this sort of immersive narrative that we're trying to come across in the world, and also we really want to have it be fun to play as a single-player game, but also have a lot of like opportunities for playful social experiences and emergent social play. So we've had to strike this balance between having these sort of more traditional like game like quest type of activities, as well as like social hubs and things like that. So we've been in closed beta for about a year, and that's been a really amazing experience to see like the things that work for players.
Yeah, when we started off the project, there's a lot that sort of, I actually, after Journey, I was working on a different project, but when Jenova invited me back, just seeing the arc of it, when this project first started out, experimenting with mobile devices, how do you make a game that feels really great to play on a phone, and the control of that, how do you make an interaction with another human through that device feel intimate and powerful, and then how do you build an economy of gifting and kind of like karma, where as you're shepherding and helping each other, there's a sort of social good that's being built up as kind of the currency of the world, and then you're delivering your sort of your earnings and the light that you've sort of built up back into giving it back to other players and back to the world and back to the other characters you're meeting in the world to sort of build it up. And that's kind of how all those things together took a long time to figure out, but I think we landed in this place where suddenly, when you look at the community and how the community treats each other in the game and how they take care of each other and how they look to help each other, it starts to, you start to feel proud of that and feel like you're doing your job, and I'm excited to just continue to take that forward.
Yeah, and the times are changing, and we as gamers are changing as well. We're coming from a game like Journey and being on a mobile device, where you find people's way of thinking is a little different than playing on a console, where you sit back on your couch, you're digesting this thing, but when you're on your phone, our minds are a little more reactive. We're saying, okay, where do you want me to go? What's the quest? What do you need me to do? We're a bit more reactive to what the game needs to be telling us, so that's a lot of what we're learning in this process.
Short sessions.
Yeah, because things that we thought we knew on Journey, we're finding some of those decisions may not work in a game like this on a mobile platform. Where we're constantly needing to make sure we're giving the player, I see where I need to go, I see what I need to do, and making sure that rhythm is always there is something we've been learning a lot in the process.
And that's, Vince, the music side, so much of, I think, what we love about that game is that emotional journey that you sort of go through. So when you say, mobile shorts, people, it's like getting people in the zone, which I think, Joe and the team are always so good at about, like, sort of, Journey. We all had that sort of first experience going through it, right? And it was, most of us probably played it in one sitting, right? Because it was just sort of, a short session experience. You said it mobile, very different sort of environment. So from a music perspective, can you talk a bit about sort of how, taking the amazing themes that you've done for other games and, bringing that emotion to, a game where you might be, checking it as, in between meetings or in between classes and things like that?
Yeah, it's really funny. Going back to what Jenova was saying about cross-generational, working on this game for so long, we're realizing that not only is there a difference between gamer and non-gamer, but there's a change in what it means to be a gamer and what it means to be a non-gamer. Yeah. And for music, something like a music cue happening in a game signals something to a gamer. You know, a hardcore gamer will listen to a piece of music and they'll actually listen to and think about what does that really mean in the game world versus allowing themselves to get immersed in it and realizing as I'm writing the music for all of these set pieces and places in the game that it actually has to be effective in hitting both of those people, the people that know the game really well and understand what it's supposed to be and do these mechanics, and the people who are just getting into the game and are getting washed up and, awash in the experience of the game and getting immersed in it. And it has very different feelings for all of that. And writing music that has depth in order to address both of those things and not really just clashing with each other is actually pretty tough.
Yeah, and you know, you're also, as you said, building this kind of kingdom that is going to, I think, evolve over time. And this is, you know, I don't know if it's an MMO, but it's definitely something. I mean, how would you describe the kind of the storytelling of this? Because obviously, you know, something like Journey was kind of a complete thought, right? And even though there was kind of, you know, a multiplayer aspect to it, which made it really unique, it very much was like a, you know, a beginning, middle, end. How is Sky conceived? Is it sort of a bunch of stories that are going to evolve over time? Is it kind of player-authored experiences? How would you describe the experience?
So it's kind of like I'm trying to answer two questions at the same time. Part of the reason the development took so long, you know, Journey only took us 3 years, which we consider as eternity. And I was like, there's no way we're going to make another 3-year game. And really, with Sky, there's actually 3 very distinct periods. The 7 years breaks down into the first 3 years. We were trying to recreate a single-player narrative game that's very linear, like Journey, and to be on a mobile platform.
Because you remember back when I would come to the office, you would be like, it was all about like the flight mechanic and making that work on mobile.
It's a very straightforward story with a kid, you know, and what happened is at the end of the third year, the entire mobile market changed. Nobody wants to pay anything beyond $1. And seeing the success of Monument Valley and looking at how many copies they actually sold versus how many Journey was sold, we were like, there's no way we're going to make our money back if we just put this game out and charge it for $8. You know, like nobody would be buying it. No. And so we entered the second, you know, kind of period where, okay, we have to make our game free because that's how mobile consumers, you know, treat games these days. They don't have the trust in the developer that what we make is worth the money. So we have to win them over. And so the second period, what we realized is for any free-to-play games, essentially what you're spending money on is social currency. It's like social capital. Whether it's a skin or it's a weapon that gives you advantage, or it's simply a membership, you're a golden member. It's social status. And the problem with a linear story is that after, you know, we were trying to compact an emotional story as short as possible so we can give you the strongest emotional blow. That's why Flower and Journey was trying to keep under 2 hours. So you can play through the whole game in one sitting without going to the bathroom. But then after the first 3 years, we have to enter this new phase where we have to essentially retain the player to, you know, come to play the game often and form a community. And once you have a community, then there's value for social status. So suddenly we're changing a linear, you can call it a roller coaster ride, into a location. It becomes more of a park. And that's really when the stories start to evolve, because when you treat this game as a park where people can come and go at any time, and they could choose to go to a specific portion of the park rather than following the linear structures, we have to essentially build the story in a more kind of more like a tree structure rather than a linear structure. And for a long time, we were struggling because, you know, our own experience has been building a very linear, emotional storytelling, and we were trying to struggle to fit a story into a park. So that took us a long time. And also, because it's a free-to-play game, we are trying to figure out how we would like to. There's a moment we have to ask the player to pay us. We have to survive. And being making console games in the past, there's some kind of pride where we do our hardest work and we expect you to pay up front, right? We're gonna show you a trailer and you're gonna pay us, regardless if the game is good or not. Where now it's kind of like the food has been served, we're asking for tips. And when to ask the tip and how you ask the tip change the customer's experience completely. And that took us a very long time to figure out, because if you really play mobile games, you would know most of the people who, when they ask you money, they are very aggressive. They're like, hey, most of the time it's super expensive. We know you're not going to buy, but for now, in the next 5 minutes, if you spend this much money, we'll give you a 90% discount, right? And this deal will never come back again, right? And just like the way the game talks to you, talks to me, it makes me want to just, give them a slap. But anyway, this is a separate topic.
Keep going.
Wind
them up.
So we're just trying to figure out how we can ask for tips honorably. And that took us a very long time. And finally, we built this park, and then we opened park in soft launch, which is 2018. At the beginning, we thought we nailed it, but there's so many things that was not doing as well as we planned. So we spent almost a year just kind of operating in a very small population and trying to improve the game. And there's so much fun stuff happening this year. Like, we will design these things to encourage people to be, generous, to be compassionate, to pay for other players rather than for themselves. And but human nature is now all altruistic, and a lot of times it's fighting against what we were pushing for in terms of the message. And so a lot of time was spent on improving how people work with each other, people's relationship within the community. But yeah, so like there's 3 major sections, and I think narrative is, like the focus of like our previous game. But with this project, it's almost like I'm too ambitious, and then we start to get into like business models, how you manage a community, how you form certain laws in the community so people are nicer to each other. I thought I was just trying to tell a story. Now I'm like managing a small community here.
No, but the idea of gifting, and I remember when you would pitch this to me, it's the idea of sort of asking the player to buy things for themselves. It's a very honorable idea of sort of finding someone that you want to reward or at least acknowledge within the game. As you guys are kind of working through Jenova's vision of this, translating that into the game, can you talk about sort of the gifting system and how that worked originally and how it's sort of evolved now for the shipping game?
So basically, there's this currency of light in the world. The world is deprived of light. There's this history that we kind of allude to where sort of the stars have fallen and there's these spirits that have been trapped in darkness, and you're trying to bring them light. And that light can be forged into this gift, which is this offering that you can give both to the spirits, certain places of the world, and then to players. And that is how you sort of build a relationship with all these different characters in the world. And it's nice because it makes the player isn't necessarily just working for their own good, right? They're building up this currency, and then they're leveling up each other. And so if you're a good shepherd, or potentially maybe you're a weak player who's like having a hard time, well, to see the players come to each other's aid and to celebrate those shepherds, or for the shepherds to celebrate these players who don't necessarily have a good footing in the game yet and kind of take them through, that's what that whole system is meant to be driving.
And in this multiplayer kind of world, you know, one of the things I think I want to ask you about, Eileen, is the social interactions and sort of the idea that, as you said, Jenova, it's like you guys have done very linear experiences. Now it feels like a lot of it is just a world that people want to be in and sort of be a part of and interact with each other. So can you talk about sort of the cadence of, you know, engaging with the game and the gameplay and the online aspects? I mean, how has that evolved in a year of people playing this?
I was hoping you would share some story.
Yeah, I
Eileen.
can share. I mean, so
Be honest.
there's a couple different. So for me, when I play, one thing that I really love about the game is that every session is so different because of the social aspects. And I think that, you know, especially like later in the game, there are some more complex quests that require a lot of coordination to do. So sometimes what'll happen is you'll be in the game and there'll be like 4 players that are like doing a lot of mostly nonverbal, like intricate collaboration to try and accomplish a really interesting goal. And that can be really fun. There's other times where you come into the game and there's just a bunch of people like jamming on instruments in the hub. And sometimes I'll just come in for 10 minutes and end up like listening to a bunch of people play music, and that's really amazing. I think that one thing that we've seen over the course of the project is we've really tried to cultivate a way, we've tried to build mechanics around encouraging people to shepherd one another. And so there is a really like special joy in taking a new player to a place that they've never been before, showing them something really beautiful, or taking them to a secret place where there's an amazing view, or like a, you know, secret. And then also being shepherded by more veteran players is really fun too. There's mechanics in the game where you have different levels of flight ability depending on how much of the game, like how long you've been playing the game. And when you first start playing the game, you can actually only access certain areas. And people who've been playing for more months, they can go everywhere, and they can take you to all these like crazy vistas and beautiful new lands. So we have found, I think, that there is a lot of gratitude that emerges from that. My partner plays the game, and one time we came in and played for a couple hours with these really cool people that took us to all these places we didn't know about, and he was just like, I just want to give these people a bunch of gifts. Like, I'm going to buy them a bunch of stuff and give them candles. And it's really amazing. It makes it feel, it's not transactional. It's very much just like a gesture of gratitude. So,
Yeah, actually, building on that, part of the reason we are trying to build this gift-giving culture in Sky is because of Journey. So Journey is supposed to be a movie that is 90 minutes long, and you know, no matter how hardcore you are towards a movie, I bet you probably watched it less than 10 times, you know, in your life. But there's all these people still playing Journey today. I was just like, what? Why are you replaying this thing? The stories are being told. They said they were helped by someone, and they really enjoyed that feeling that they could be the help of someone else. And that was just very inspiring for me, because, you know, there's many things that's fun in life that we want to do many, many times. And helping someone, the joy from the altruistic act is something that is actually real. And what we wanted to do is to make the community more likely to do that. And the funny thing is, you know, as a game designer, I believe that we are human beings, that we have all the qualities. We can be both cruel and we can be both, you know, like holy. And it's upon the designer's job to create the world and the community to highlight certain aspects of our humanity. Certainly, if we build a game about killing each other, the community wouldn't be very nice. And, you know, if we create a game and a world that promotes certain value, you can influence how players behave to each other. We saw that in Flower and Journey, where for the moment before they played the game, they were still playing, you know, Halo or Call of Duty or whatever that game. They're teabagging the other person, and then the next moment they are like this lovey-dovey companion who is like so nice to each other and drawing hearts in the snow, right? I mean, they are the same person. And so I'm very intrigued in this, because I see, in the development, like a tiny little change, initially the character can push each other in journey, and they just do all kinds of mean stuff to each other. And then we change it to they can charge each other, and suddenly they love to hang out. They become friendly. And so, it's my belief that it's the designer's duty to shape the atmosphere and the basic law of the world, and to bring certain aspect of the player out. And certainly for Sky, we are hoping those nice moments we see in Journey, those moments where people are here to help each other, are more highlighted in this community. And so far, after a year of battling the bad human natures, I feel like our community is finally at the point where I can say it's pretty safe and friendly.
Wow.
And you have to play the game to experience that.
We won't have to wait long. I know it's coming out July, right?
Yeah, next month.
Next month on Apple, right? So we'll be able to play it on.
And you can pre-order on the iOS right now, and the Android is coming, and eventually we put it onto PC and console as well. So we're not exclusive to any platform. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, again, love everything the game That Game Company represents, and excited to be able to jump into the world, the free world of Sky in July. Thanks so much, guys. Congratulations on getting to the near the finish line. We'll be right back.